Now,
Hi, this is Ettie Jeanne talking, and I'm giving some memories of times with Virginia. Very, very special times, every time. A little bit about Virginia. Daddy took Mother up on the hill at the hospital, and then when he came back, he said, I think that the boys and I had stayed with a dear friend, a Brazilian friend, and he came and he said, "You have a baby sister, and her name is Virginia, and she is up in the hospital with her mother. But I want you to come out and see something." Now, we lived in a big square red house that had a garage added, and the way to get on top of the garage was to go through the kitchen window. So we climbed in the window, went out there, and he said, "Look up in the sky. That is a comet, and that is Virginia's comet." Now they've said here wasn't seen. I don't know what comet it was. So what's the next thing, Nancy?
okay, so number one is home with mother.
Okay, eventually, Virginia came home with Mother. Mother was not too well, and I just took Virginia on as my baby. And she was just a sweet little, darling little baby, and I took care of her with Mother's instructions and so forth. And it was so wonderful. I called her my baby. I could wash her with the washcloth. I could put little baby clothes on her, and it was great.
Next is Nancy Harris, so that's back
Now,
then.
Nancy Harris was born on November 10th,
61.
1961.
Mm-hmm.
And Virginia came from New Orleans Seminary to spend Christmas with us. Nancy was just barely a month old, and so as soon as Virginia got there, she held Nancy in her lap, held her little head in front of her, and just talked and talked and talked to her, and Nancy listened intently, and then gave Virginia the first knowing smile, and we were all so pleased with that. We spent some time in Georgia, and then when Mother and Daddy went back to the mission field, I stayed in college, and Virginia, of course, went with them. So we weren't together too much for a good little while. But boy, when we came back together, when we had
being together, yep.
When we had family reunions, we just were like magnets to each other, and we loved being together.
You wanted to tell about the dishcloth.
We took a family picture in our living room.
How old was she then?
Huh?
How old do you think she was when that picture was taken?
Oh, I really don't know.
But a little girl.
No, she was a teenager.
A teenager, okay.
And she always had a dust cloth in her hand because she was always dusting things. And when we took a family picture one time, Mother said, "Put that cloth away." I said, "No, that's part of her."
So we have to find that picture.
We haven't found that picture yet. Here lately, we talked at least once a month, and sometimes twice, and enjoyed talking to each other. When Ovis and Virginia were in our living room, he was telling me some stories. He and Virginia knew each other. She worked in the state Baptist office, and he was a pastor there, so they knew each other. But then a while after his wife died, your mother, he was, even though he started seeing Virginia a good bit, he was so worried because he did, after all, have 5 children. But he told me, he said, finally one day, I just broke it to her. I said, look, I really would like to propose marriage, but I do have 5 children. And Virginia said, well, I've always wanted a house full of kids. And so that worked. And she loved you like her own.
Okay.
Okay. And she's trying, Nancy's helping me and trying to read my writing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you say that?
Vitória, Pernambuco, Brazil.
That's where she was born?
That's where she was born.
Okay, tell us about the picture of the little chickens.
Well, Daddy ordered, he traveled all over the state of Espírito Santo, Holy Spirit, and Vitória was the capital of it. But when he traveled, he liked to take 2 little hens and a little,
What kind of animal?
chickens.
Okay.
Anyway, he'd take some to the family.
Chickens and a rooster, that's probably it.
And a rooster. And so anyway, we went to the train and got the box with the chickens, brought them home and fed them. They were hungry and they were mainly thirsty. And I took care of one little chicken, bless its heart. He had his little head turned backwards, and I helped him eat for about a week, but that's all I could do. But anyway, then Daddy would take chickens all over the state to people he stayed with. But at home, we had a chicken yard, and I had parrots. And at the chicken yard, the chickens would cluck, 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 or the rooster would crow, and the parrots would imitate them. And I'm sure that the little picture of Virginia with the chickens must have been there at the beach. So
Tell us about that beach house. I have a picture of that. So there are pictures. You guys were...
this has nothing to do with
It's just
Virginia.
fun.
It's just fun thing.
Well, she was in your beach house if she was at the chickens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did she grow up in the beach house too?
Yes, she did. We had...
Excuse me.
We went to our dentist, and my daddy told him that we were looking for a house, out in the coast because Mother wasn't too well and needed a place where she could have better air. And the dentist said, well, I have a place and you can buy it. And so we did. And it was a wonderful time in our life when this has nothing to do directly with Virginia, but with our family. We loved our little beach house. And I think the boys slept on the porch. And that's when we played Chinese checkers all the time.
That's where it got started, okay?
Yeah, we played Chinese checkers together. And it was so good. And then one night, it got sort of chilly. And the boys had a cabinet, and in the bottom drawer there was some blankets, but I could not get them open. So I went to Ernest, I think it was, and he went there and he pushed, pulled, and pumped, and then I got the drawer open, and he got us some blankets, and so we could cover up and get warm. But it wasn't often very chilly there, just a little bit.
This is in where? Where was this
And this
located?
was in Vitória,
Okay.
Espírito Santo, but at the beach.
Now there's another picture that I'm going to show that's a picture of Vova and Granddaddy and teenage Virginia, or young Virginia. And they look like they're peeling mangoes, but they're sitting in the house in Feta with that wonderful curled furniture. You want to describe that picture or that house in Feta? Remember, with all the furniture?
Oh, yes. Well, it was way out in the interior of Brazil then.
Mm-hmm.
But
Feta
anyway.
de Santana.
What?
Feta?
Feta de Santana. But one night, we were having a beautiful sunset, and Mother said, "Why don't we sit outside?" Well, we had a bougainvillea bush, and in that bougainvillea bush, there was some macaw parrots, the big ones, the red and blue ones they had, I think. And then we had 3 parrots. They had stripped a round limb so that no other creature could come get them. And they sat on those 3 limbs. So we went out and we sat down to watch the sunset. All of a sudden, one of the parrots went, like my mother. And another one went, like Daddy. And we all laughed. The more we laughed, the more they laughed. And then they would just flip around that limb like it was just nothing. They did a somersault around it.
And laugh and flip.
And we just sat till we laughed until we cried.
That was in the house in Feta?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful.
So you are 91?
Yes.
In your 92nd year, you have been told?
You know, they don't start counting until you're 1 year old.
That's a good point. So you're actually in your 92nd year.
The memorial for Virginia is planned on her birthday, which is January 31st.
That's right.
And I'm so glad. I think the planning your family has done has been great.
We wish we could be there. Hi to everybody that is. We miss
And we know that you said Jack, who now calls himself Ernest in honor of his father, just lives 30 minutes away. And I was so happy to hear he's going to be there with you.
And maybe Scott, I'm not sure, but some of the Elton Johnson clan might be there as well.
Might be there.
So hi to us.
So what I say to Virginia now is, farewell, dear one. And in Portuguese, we would have said, até logo, which means at some time, we'll see each other again. Até logo is simple. And I know that someday we'll be together again.
But not too soon.
But not too soon.